Tonight, the aftermath.
I've sat, I've apologized, I've asked for forgiveness.
Sifting through the debris field after a fiery debate.
I believe in democratic socialism.
Where the Democrats stand in the race for the White House.
Let's put forward somebody who's actually a Democrat.
And the president's counter-programming.
I hear a lot of bad things are happening.
The rally strategy provoking the 2020 Democratic candidates. Plus, the latest in the global outbreak of the coronavirus. And our interview with Richard Grinnell.
Changing the status quo is always messy.
Before he was the president's pick for the acting director of national intelligence. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
Richard Grinnell seems like the man.
What happened in Vegas, not staying in Vegas. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm Jenna Browder.
And I'm John Jessup. Well, the damage has been done, and 2020 Democrats are now picking up the pieces after last night's memorable debate in Nevada. Most of their fire trained on newcomer Michael Bloomberg.
A bitter brawl. Frontrunner Bernie Sanders also fielded his fair share of attacks.
I'd like to talk about who we're running against. A billionaire who calls women fat broads and horse-faced lesbians. And no, I'm not talking about Donald Trump. I'm talking about Mayor Bloomberg.
The billionaire who spent millions of his own dollars on campaign ads, hitting back and training his focus on President Trump.
I'm a New Yorker. I know how to take on an arrogant con man like Donald Trump.
Bloomberg apologized for the controversial policy known as stop and frisk, which he defended as New York's mayor.
I've sat, I've apologized, I've asked for forgiveness. There is no great answer to a lot of these problems. And if we took off everybody that was wrong on off this panel, everybody that was wrong on criminal justice at some time in their careers, there'd be nobody else up here.
He also took hits over alleged discriminatory and sexist comments made to women who worked for him.
We are not going to beat Donald Trump with a man who has who knows how many non-disclosure agreements and the drip, drip, drip of stories of women saying they have been harassed and discriminated against. That's not what we do as Democrats.
It's easy. All the mayor has to do is say, you are released from the non-disclosure agreement, period.
Frontrunner Bernie Sanders, who's surging in national polls, also fielded a fair amount of attacks. The candidate forced to defend his socialist health care and economic policies.
I believe in democratic socialism for working people, not billionaires. Health care for all.
You don't start out by saying, I've got 160 million people. I'm going to take away the insurance plan that they love.
Pete Buttigieg taking it to both the frontrunner and the newcomer.
Let's put forward somebody who's actually a Democrat. Look, we shouldn't have to choose between one candidate who wants to burn this party down and another candidate who wants to buy this party out.
The former South Bend, Indiana mayor clashed several times with Amy Klobuchar, once for not knowing the name of Mexico's president.
Are you trying to say that I'm dumb, or are you mocking me here, Pete?
I'm saying that you shouldn't trivialize
I made an error.
And former Vice President Joe Biden, who's slipping in the polls, spent the night defending his record.
I'm the only one on this stage that actually got anything done on health care. Okay?
The Nevada caucus is Saturday, but early voting there is already underway. And after Nevada, the candidates head to South Carolina for the Palmetto State's primary and another debate.
Tonight, Mayor Michael Bloomberg is trying to rally after the punishing debate performance, heading to Salt Lake City, Utah for morning after recharge and to take aim at the frontrunner, Bernie Sanders.
So how was your night last night? Look, the real winner in the debate last night was Donald Trump. Because I worry that we may very well be on the way to nominating somebody who cannot win in November. And if we choose a candidate who appeals to a small base like Senator Sanders, it will be a fatal error.
The billionaire candidate called Sanders' promises pie in the sky, urging voters to build a coalition of Democrats, independents, and Republicans to beat President Trump. Well, here now with us for our Faith Nation political panel is CBN News Chief Political Analyst David Brody. David, thank you for being here.
Glad to be here. Last
night's debate was the most watched Democratic debate with 33.5 million viewers. Let's talk winners and losers.
Well, let's start with losers. Michael Bloomberg, and then after that would be Michael Bloomberg, and then Michael Bloomberg also was as well a loser. So no, I mean it was a horrible debate performance, really was. Why? Because Elizabeth Warren was just delivering. It was just she was pummeling him with verbal barrage after verbal, and he just stood there. It was a deer in the headlights. Look, I mean, I was like, are you going to say anything? He had nothing. He had no game whatsoever. So clearly he's better in 30-second ads on my television every night rather than on the debate stage. It was horrible. Winners, Elizabeth Warren did really, really well. We'll see if she gets an uptick in the poll numbers.
Do you agree with Bloomberg? He said Donald Trump was the real big winner last night.
There's some truth to that. You know, anytime Democrats are squabbling, for sure, you know, Trump's going to be a winner. But I thought Bernie Sanders was also a winner last night because why? Well, look, you know, they do the same old thing to Bernie every single time. You're a socialist, you're horrible for America. But we've been hearing this for not just in this last 9 months, but we were hearing this for years with Bernie. So clearly it's not made a difference in the polls. So look, every day that he survives and fire is trained on other people, and it was on Bloomberg last night, that's a win for Bernie.
Well, today, Sanders and Warren both reporting record campaign contributions following this debate. David, what does that tell us?
Well, first of all, it says that Warren had a really good debate, for sure, and Bernie continues to continue on. I think Elizabeth Warren could be the kingmaker or the queenmaker, if you will, in all of this. In other words, if she's going to have a certain amount of delegates, and if and when she gets out of the race, if she's not the nominee, that could go to Bernie. She could tell her delegates, especially if we're getting to the convention, to say, hey, you know, why don't you go over to Bernie and make that suggestion, and then Bernie could potentially have enough to get over the hump if he doesn't have enough already. We'll see. We're getting ahead of ourselves.
David, sorry. Go ahead.
Please fight over it.
It's like the debate night.
Yeah, everybody trying to get a word in. You know, David, did she have a missed opportunity, Elizabeth Warren, last night when she really didn't go after Bernie Sanders? She went after Bloomberg more, but her and Sanders are both competing in that progressive lane.
Yeah, but here's the issue. So if you look at 1, 2, 3, right? So there's Bernie, and then there's Bloomberg, Biden, Warren, Buttigieg. She's got to get ahead of Bloomberg before she can get to Bernie, and so I think there's that. And also, let's also be honest. She calls herself a capitalist. That's fine. She's a capitalist. But she's also much closer to Bernie in public policy, so she's probably not going to go after Bernie as much as she will the billionaire Bloomberg and many others.
David, what about some of those tense or awkward moments between Mayor Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar last night? What did you make of that?
Well, they're competing for the same votes, but it's more than that. It's really gotten into bad blood. I mean, she didn't shake his hand last night. He didn't shake her hand, but she just bolted right past him. It's just nasty. But remember, they have a lot, in a way, in common, right? They're both from the Midwest, and they're both that center-left position. And so there's a rivalry there. But I think what's bothering Klobuchar quite a bit is that she is a sitting United States senator, and here's this 38-year-old, which, by the way, he looked 42 yesterday with some of the stubble. That was a good look for him. But the point is that I think she was like, look, enough, Pete, of your rhetoric and your 7 languages. And so I think she was frustrated with that.
Okay. David Brody, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, David.
Well, meanwhile, former National Security Advisor John Bolton is denouncing the Democrats' impeachment of President Trump, calling it, quote, grossly partisan. Bolton says it wouldn't have made any difference had he testified, as Democrats hoped he would. In an appearance at Vanderbilt University, he told the audience that the Senate still would have acquitted Trump, Bolton adding that House Democrats, quote, committed impeachment malpractice.
Well, tonight, Roger Stone, the president's longtime ally and former campaign advisor, faces more than 3 years in prison. The 40-month sentence for obstruction, lying to Congress, and witness tampering to protect President Trump precedes several prosecutors in the case quitting the DOJ after the Justice Department backed off from its original sentencing recommendation. Attorney General Bill Barr is facing criticism for interfering in a case at the heart of a rocky back and forth between the president and his attorney general. Well, coming up, more headlines with analysis from our chief political analyst, David Brody. Stay with us.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary, or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN Newswatch.
Thanks for joining us.
Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, Incredible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN Newswatch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Yes, right on time.
From Superbook.
Pepper's Pizza Palace is donating pizza for everyone today. Wait. I have big plans today.
Trust in God even when times are tough. He has a plan for your life.
Hey, we're gonna be late for the grand opening.
My parents want me to help with this outreach thing, feeding the community. What am I supposed to do here? Superbook!
Join the Superbook Club and get Superbook The Birth of Moses, plus 2 copies to share with others, all for your gift of only $25.
Pharaoh ordered all newborn Hebrew boys thrown into the Nile River, and I have a 3-month-old brother.
The Birth of Moses. Yours for a gift of only $25.
What will you do the next time the soldiers come? I do not know, but I trust God has a plan for all of us.
Superbook Club members, free streaming for seasons 1, 2, and 3 is now available.
Tonight, Richard Grenell is set to become the country's top intelligence chief. Grenell is the current ambassador to Germany, and as he explained in a previous interview with CBN News, he's not overly popular with the Germans because of his staunch support for President Trump.
In the short term, in the immediacy, that changing the status quo is always messy, that people get comfortable and they don't want to change the status quo. So I got good perspective. I'm a cancer survivor, and I have to tell you that when you wake up and you've defeated cancer and you're looking at life in a different way on a daily basis, bad media coverage or critical media coverage or complainers from the side, that doesn't bother me.
And the Trump administration has until March 11th to nominate a permanent DNI. Grenell will be allowed to stay on as acting DNI until a nominee is confirmed. And Grenell's announcement comes as President Trump hits the campaign trail. Last night, he was in Arizona counter-programming the Democratic debate.
And though he was hundreds of miles away, it didn't stop Mr. Trump from taking direct shots at his Democratic opponents during his campaign's rally. Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson joins us now with more. Abigail?
That's right, John. President Trump didn't hold back his punches on Wednesday night, giving a preview of his coming attacks on whomever the Democrat nominee winds up being.
They just came out with a poll a little while ago. Mini Mike was at 15 and Crazy Bernie was at 31. That's a lot. And Mini Mike just spent $500 million. But the DNC is going to take it away from Bernie again. And that's okay, because we don't care who the hell it is. We're going to win. We're going to win. We have to. You know, I came up with the name Pocahontas too early. But fortunately, she's self-destructed anyway. Did you ever see a phony like that? She's a phony.
And we're really starting to see a pattern from President Trump, who is also very much campaigning right now, of him kind of politically shadowing these major events for 2020 Democrats. His rally last night, as you said, was just one state over at the same time as the Democrat debate. And afterwards, he flew to Las Vegas and slept at his hotel there ahead of an event in Vegas today. Now, I recently spoke to the Trump campaign's press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany, who told me at these rallies thousands of people are camping out for days ahead of time. And she said she believes they are seeing a surge in enthusiasm for this reason.
Our base has never been more energized than they are because, in large part, of this impeachment sham. They want to show their support for the president. We've seen it in our fundraising dollars. We've seen it in our volunteer turnout. But beyond that, it's building the Trump coalition as well. You know, routinely we see at these rallies that about a quarter of those who show up are Democrats showing up at Trump rallies. So this coalition is growing.
And President Trump is also planning a rally in South Carolina next Friday night ahead of the primary, and in North Carolina March 2nd ahead of Super Tuesday. Back to you, John and Jenna.
All right, Abigail Robertson, thank you very much. Well, David Brody is with us once again. David, let's talk about Grenell and that announcement. Why is he given the acting DNI position and not the full-on D&I position?
Well, first of all, there will be a full-on D&I position. That's going to come soon. So Trump will nominate someone officially. But here's where he may be being a little cute here, and I mean the president. While that official nomination goes through with someone else, Grinnell will be in the acting D&I position, and Grinnell and Trump are pretty much simpatico on a lot of political issues and a lot of basically agenda issues. So if the Senate ties up this nominee for D&I, Trump has his man Grinnell all along for about 210 days or so. That's how long you can be an acting D&I while this other nominee would go through.
David, former National Security Advisor John Bolton publicly denounced the impeachment proceedings. This after he said that he was willing to testify in the Senate trial. Is he playing it both ways, or is this maybe about his upcoming book?
I think it's a bit about his book, but not entirely. Look, when he denounced the impeachment process, he was really getting on the Democrats specifically for making it partisan. So there's two different things going on here. He believes that he has got some information to explain about what happened with Trump and Ukraine in the Oval Office in those conversations. That's separate from the fact that he still thinks that, regardless of all of that, the Democrats overplayed their hand on impeachment and was too partisan.
But who would that information have helped, presumably?
Well, the information you mean between Trump and Bolton?
The information Bolton wanted to present.
Well, that's where he's playing too cute by half here. You know, he is making it sound like he had some information, but it wasn't impeachable. But I think that goes back to the book sales.
President Trump says he would like to see his longtime friend Roger Stone exonerated. He's been given 3 years in prison. David, what do you make of this sentence?
Well, remember, Bill Barr said we didn't think it should be 7 to 9 years like the prosecutors had said, and he got a lot of flack for saying it should be less. And guess what? Oh, look, it's less. Well, you know what? That kind of exonerates Bill Barr, first of all, to a degree. And Donald Trump and Roger Stone and many others believe that this has been tainted from the very beginning, especially with the jury forewoman who may have had some bias against Trump. She was going to be a Democrat potentially running for Congress, and there's some of that. So the whole thing could be tainted. We're going to see. I would think he's eventually going to pardon Stone.
I was just going to ask, do you think we'll see a pardon?
I think so. I think that's been his track record, and Trump doesn't care. I mean, you know, Trump's going to take hits on it politically and PR-wise, but I don't think he cares. As a matter of fact, he doesn't care.
Thanks, David.
All right, guys.
Up next, the global coronavirus outbreak. The first deaths off a cruise ship in Japan, with over 100 Americans still barred from entering the U.S.
When I came to Regent University, it's like the world opened up. I felt like I needed to advance my career and go back to school. Regent was a perfect fit for me. The Regent professors are world-class. You are equipped. The focus of the faculty is on each individual student, whether it's online or in person. You become a part of Regent's family. You carry with you not just the content and the knowledge, but the confidence to understand that we can be significant in the world.
Regent University. Follow your path.
Nigerian Christians
in Iran are routinely arrested.
Happily, Christians continue to suffer.
In times of trial and affliction, you need to know the truth.
One of the fastest growing Christian populations in the world.
Join Wendy Griffith and George Thomas for Christian World News.
Young people are the ones who are open to the gospel.
Powerful stories of suffering and hope that affect all Christians. Watch Christian World News, Saturday at 5 p.m. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
New and potentially disturbing information about the transport of Americans with coronavirus.
The Washington Post is reporting 14 American passengers from the Diamond Princess cruise ship in Japan who tested positive for the disease were allowed to fly home with others who were healthy. CBN National Security Correspondent Eric Phillips has the latest. Eric?
John and Jenna, this just happened Monday as hundreds of passengers from the cruise ship were set to come home. Suddenly, 14 of them tested positive for the disease. A decision had to be made on whether or not to allow them to board the plane with the others. The CDC said no, but the State Department said yes and won. This, as the number of coronavirus cases in China took a sharp downturn, though there are questions surrounding that. The news that China reported just under 400 new cases in the last 24 hours would appear positive, since the previous day's number was 1,700. In all, there are about 75,000 reported cases there. Twice now, China has changed how they count daily new infections, so there's suspicion that the latest figure could be even larger. That's why the U.S. is closely watching Chinese media outlets operating on American soil to see if they are spreading misinformation from the regime. Meanwhile, 2 former passengers aboard the Diamond Princess cruise ship have died, bringing the number of virus-related deaths in Japan to 3.
I'm looking forward to seeing my baby boy.
A much different story in the U.S., where those in quarantine for the past 14 days are now being released.
57 people arrived here for quarantine, and 57 healthy people are going back to their communities. And the really important thing to know is that these people pose no health threat to their communities.
With a total number of 15 reported cases in the U.S., officials believe the threat to the American population and economy are low, but still present.
The question for us really is, what will be the effects on the U.S. economy? Will they be persistent? Will they be material? And we know that there will be some, very likely be some effects on the United States. I think it's just too early to say. We have to resist the temptation to speculate on this.
And I should mention, with the arrival of those 14 passengers, that makes the total number of people here on American soil with coronavirus 29. Now, the biggest hit to the U.S. economy will take, as the epidemic stretches on, will be the area of tourism, Chinese tourism. The U.S. benefits from those dollars every year. Also, supplies ranging from car parts to iPhones coming to the U.S. from China will be slowed as factories there are shut down because of the virus. Much more to cover on this, John and Jenna.
All right, Eric Phillips, thank you. And joining us now is Frank Gaffney, national security expert and executive chairman of the Center for Security Policy. Frank, thank you for being with us today. Your thoughts on China and how it is handling this whole crisis?
It's gone from bad to worse, I think. What we're seeing is China is engaged in a massive disinformation operation. It is dissembling, I think, about both the magnitude of the affliction on its own people and the threat that it represents to the rest of us. This is something that has been going on now since the beginning of December. And just as one particularly stunning insight into the problem, the Chinese government, as I'm sure you know, withheld information about this virus outbreak from its own people for about 30 critical days. And during that time, they not only allowed millions of them to move around the country, disseminating it, but they even permitted a potluck dinner for 130,000 people to take place in Wuhan, the absolute center of this outbreak. It's just incredible, irresponsible, and I think it has compounded the danger that the virus poses to not only its own people, but to us as well.
Frank, I'm not sure if you heard the preceding report from our national security correspondent, Eric Phillips, but that spat between the CDC and the State Department, does that suggest that the United States government is doing enough to protect Americans from the coronavirus?
Well, it seems as though some of the government is, and some of it isn't. It's hard for me to believe that the State Department would have been able to trump on a medical call the decision of the Centers for Disease Control not to have passengers who were evidently not only contaminated with this disease, but exhibiting symptoms of it, to be in a population of people in a closed space coming back to the United States, namely an airplane. But if that in fact happened, it does, I'm afraid, demand that our government get its act together and do even more of what I think, by and large, it has done to date, which is to take a very tough line on the arrivals in this country of Chinese or people coming from China or people who have been in China. I mean, those are sensible steps, and we need them to be, applied uniformly, not intermittently.
Frank, just a few seconds left, but with the new arrival of the Americans here, how much do you worry about the global economic impact that this virus could have?
I think it's tremendous, and I don't think we really even understand the scope of it. The problem that was touched on by Eric at the end of his report is particularly worrying, even more than the tourism problem, I think, is supply chain disruption. People have no idea how dependent we are on China for supply of all kinds of things, including, by the way, medicine. Some 80 to 90% of our medicine. Serious problem, folks.
All right, Frank Gaffney with the Center for Security Policy. Thank you, Frank, for being with us, and we'll be right back.
Christians around the world are standing with the Israelis. But why? In CBN's free magazine, Friends of Israel, you'll discover why Christians are supporting the Jewish state, how Israel is fulfilling prophecy as a light to the nations, and ways you can pray for the people of Israel. Israel needs the support of friends like you. Call now or go to cbn.com to get your free copy of Friends of Israel.
Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the work of your Spirit, Lord God, with this movement of getting the Bible,
yes,
Lord, into public schools.
Watch The Prayer Link, Tuesday nights at 6:30.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Get Protect Your Sleep and live your best life with innovative information from 5 leading sleep experts.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
Discover a sleep-enhancing bedtime routine, how to put insomnia to rest, learn how to relieve pain that disturbs sleep, and much more in Protect Your Sleep.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Don't miss out on this brand new series.
And finally tonight, an incredible recovery after a nearly fatal finish at the Daytona 500.
By now, we've all seen footage from that crash in which the driver miraculously survived. Newman walked out of the hospital, his daughters by his side, less than 2 days after being pulled from the crumpled car. One of the doctors said the entire nation was praying for him, including the doctor's wife and daughter. Neither Newman nor NASCAR have revealed the extent of his injuries. A timeline for his possible return is also uncertain at this time.
God, that's so sweet to see him with his 2 girls.
Amazing.
Adorable.
Well, that's going to do it for tonight's Faith Nation.
Have a great evening.